Good afternoon, everybody. Hope you're all doing fine. This is going to be a video on setting up your preferences in Photoshop so that it behaves the way photographers want it to behave. So let's get started with that. The way we access the preferences on the Macintosh is we go under the word or phrase Photoshop CC. Third one down is your preferences, and then I'm just going to go into general. There are all of these different things, and I don't want to talk about all that kind of stuff because it's just too boring. Besides, it's in the PDF, so there you go. This is updated for Photoshop 2015 CC, and the PDF is probably for Photoshop CS6. Doesn't make a heck of a lot of difference. The first thing that I want to talk about is the default color space that Photoshop is living in, and some of the other things that I believe are important for us as photographers. So let's just go through the preferences quickly here. The color picker is the Adobe one. We'll leave that alone. The HUD color picker stands for heads up display color picker. In other words, in Photoshop, if you hold down a couple of keyboards, click your mouse in your Photoshop document, you'll get a color picker that pops up. It's in one of my videos. Image interpolation is set to bicubic automatic. There are a number of different options in here. I'm going to say just leave it here for now. Interpolation just means when you're making your image larger or making it smaller, Photoshop has to recalculate the information, interpolate, right? So just let Photoshop do it the best it knows how. Just leave that alone. With these options in here, I don't think there's anything I really want to change here. Auto update open documents, not really. Show start workspace, never. Oh, this is annoying as all hell. And if it's on by default, then come in here and turn it off. Show recent files workspace, no, thank you. None of that's a beep. No, I don't need beeping and all that kind of stuff. Skip transform when placing. No, it's kind of nice to have that in there. All this other stuff is good to go. So we're just going to go to the interface and how it looks. Don't think there's anything I want to change here. If you don't like Photoshop being as dark gray as you see here, which is what you see all around, you can change it to any one of these guys. It's up to you. I don't see any need to change that. The workspace is dealing with, oh, this guy here. This annoys the nonsense out of me. You guys may like having tabbed documents and all that stuff. I'd rather have it the way it was before, which was independent floating image windows as opposed to this docking environment. So what I'm going to do is uncheck the open documents as tabs, and then to prevent my images from tabbing and docking into themselves, even though they may be floating windows, I'm going to uncheck enable floating document window docking. That I need to get rid of. As far as tools are concerned, I don't think there's anything I need to change in here. Zoom clicked point to center. That's kind of nice. When you're zoomed in, if you click, it kind of centers it in your document. So maybe I will turn that one on. Zoom with a scroll wheel. If you have, go for it. History log. Photoshop can keep a running text file on everything you do, every step you do. And for the most part, I don't think it's necessary to have that text log invoked. Some people do it for business purposes so they can actually show the client the work they've done and how long it may have taken them and all that kind of stuff. Not interested in that. File handling, maximize compatibility in PSB, always or used to default to ask. Now it looks like it's defaulting to always, so that annoying dialog box will not pop up. File saving options, good to go, leave it alone. File compatibility, good. Everything, it seems to be fine. Disable compression of Photoshop and PSV. But no, don't disable that. No. Okay. Export. Again, everything seems to be, I don't think I'd change much here. Color space. Convert to sRGB. That one may need a little consideration at some other point. I'll have to look it up and see why or what that's all about, because I haven't seen that one before. Performance. When it comes to how Photoshop is using your resources on your computer, this value right here, 70%, don't make it anymore. All right. If you think that if you allow Photoshop to use 90% of your computer's resources, you're mistaken, because your computer needs some of the resources to actually operate itself. So I wouldn't do that. I'd put more RAM in, I'd get a solid state drive, whatever, but I don't think I'd go above that there. A processor, I'd leave that alone, but notice there's a description when I mouse over certain things, so you can learn more about stuff. I would leave this alone, leave this alone, leave this in the cache levels. You know, when you do a command plus, or command minus, 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 and all that kind of stuff, it has to do with your cache levels. Leave it alone. This is nice. They've raised this from the default 20 to 50. This is fantastic. This here can be very, very important, your scratch disk. If you don't know what a scratch disk is, when Photoshop runs out of RAM, all right, you're processing something and there's not enough RAM in the computer to do this kind of stuff, Photoshop will actually write bits of whatever you're trying to get it to do to your local hard drive, and then it'll kind of read back and forth, back and forth, back and forth until it gets done. Not a good idea. If you find that you're doing a lot of, super large documents, and I'm not just talking, a couple of megabytes, I'm talking hundreds of megabytes constantly, then I would strongly suggest you get, just go out and buy yourself an external hard drive. 1 gigabyte hard drive, they're less than $100. Connect it up and just use that as your scratch disk. Right now it's using the startup disk, which is not really that great, but it's all we got it because I haven't got anything else connected here. Cursors. These are kind of interesting. We have two different types of cursors. You have painting cursors and you have any other kind of cursor. So a painting cursor deals with the tools that work like a paintbrush. Normal brush tip. Fantastic. A lot of people would rather have full-size brush tip, and if I click on that, you can see that this guy just got larger, and it's including the feathering edge and all that kind of stuff. I don't bother because I've been using the application long enough that I understand how far out my feather value is going to go. Over here we have the other cursors. So in other words, I want my other cursors to look like the tool I have chosen as opposed to being a precise cursor. If at any point in time you want your standard cursor to behave like a precise cursor, just hit your caps lock key. And on that note, if you're ever in Photoshop and your brushes or anything else always looks like a precise cursor and you can't remember how to, why is this doing this? Why is this happening? Well, you're probably in a word processing document and you probably had the caps lock on, or your cat walked across your desk and caps lock is on. All right, just hit the caps lock and you're back into Photoshop as normal. Transparency, gamut, unit, rulers, it's all covered in the PDF, so I'm not going to go on any further. Those are basically the things that I wanted to talk about as far as that's concerned. There's one other thing that I want to talk about, and that is accessing the default color space that Photoshop lives in. And we'll do that in the next video.